best agent. He can see things that no one else does.
He read that crime scene like it was a book. He's good police. And you know what else? He's objectively hot.
My man gets
That's so interesting because I don't know for sure how much I can tease about that, but the short answer is no, it doesn't just go away entirely. There is a reference to it, at least in one of our episodes.
Yeah, we just shot.
Coming up, where we are certainly reminded that went down, and that these two share that secret, and that they shoulder that responsibility and that risk of that secret.
Okay.
Or bonding experience, whatever
The
you want.
trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding, yeah.
And
We're in it together
responsibility and
now.
risk. Yeah. I think the chances are quite strong because that seems inevitable and necessary for our story. I think that's, you know, it's not a will they, won't they, but it's a will they or won't they actually make it work? And that I definitely don't know.
Is there any possibility for a love triangle to come up? I mean, will Michael...
Between me, Betty, and Will. I don't know. I think that would be crazy. That would be nuts. That would be kind of, yeah, that actually never crossed my mind, there being a love triangle between Will, Angie, and Ormwood.
No, that
would, yeah, I don't see that happening personally. I don't personally see that happening. But who knows?
No, because then all of that relatability and that growth that Ormwood gets is like
that would get
washed
flushed
away.
really
It's
quick.
Like, whoops.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's bad.
Sparks. There are some sparks, but you know, Will is not looking for love. That's what's interesting, and I always find kind of, you know, he's sort of just doing his job, trying to compartmentalize all the things that he's dealing with in his life and not searching for this. But this character, Cricket, enters his life and is a really interesting person who's kind of laying it all out there for him, you know, in a way. And he is intrigued. You know, they go through this moment where they are sort of in a very specific situation. You know, there's a car bomb and it's tense, and I think Will, out of that experience, sort of sees some potential in this, and that it's something new. And again, like I said, something hopeful, something different. And it's rare that we get to see Will sort of smitten or intrigued by something and wanting to go further, especially because things have been so complicated. I mean, and we're still not resolved with the Angie of it all. It's not like we're boxing things up and putting bows on them and saying, no, this is open-ended. And so I think, you know, she really represents that character sort of what a possibility could be like, and maybe something a bit more healthy. You know, these two characters are bonded through some pretty traumatic experiences, and because of that, there's always a connection. There's always a real deep love that I know Will has for Angie and vice versa. They know so much about each other. But yet, I think at the end of season 1 and beginning of season 2, Will is just maybe putting up for the first time some soft borders. He's a little cautious in this relationship and trying to figure out, like, I think they're both trying to figure out, like, how do we move forward in this? What is it? Literally, there's a scene at the pool where it's like, does he go into the pool or not even? And I think he doesn't want to go there because he knows what might happen. But she's luring, and their history, and it's just, again, it's that constant push-pull that we love to see with Will and love to see him in with Angie. But I think it's like for the first time we're seeing him trying to be a little cautious of this and what does it mean? And throughout the season, and something that he does a lot, is he avoids a lot of things. You know, he doesn't deal with some of the stuff that's happened in his life. But we begin to see him start to actively sort of search and figure out, who am I? Who's my father? What is this other piece of the puzzle that I don't know anything about? And what comes with that? And it's loaded. And there might be some positive things that come of it, and there might be some more triggered things that aren't so great for him. But it makes for good television. You know, I think Amanda and Will in a lot of ways are very similar. You know, they don't talk about things. And I feel like that's also just very sort of the culture of cops and first responders, of people who have to be facing really tough, traumatic situations regularly. You develop coping mechanisms. And Will has many, because he's been through a lot. But both of them don't necessarily have the tools to just talk it out in a way. And so when we meet them again, I think it's still, some of it might feel kind of like, yeah, you know, the business as usual in a way when we're at work. Yet we know that there's an undercurrent tone of what hasn't been spoken of really. And what is this relationship? I mean, she's like a mother figure. And even more so now that he knows the history. And so we want to definitely explore some of that and see where that goes. But again, these two people aren't people that can very easily open up and explore those emotions and explore those conversations. So it'll be tricky. One of the people that has a lot of information is James Holster, and someone that he probably doesn't really want to interact with much, yet holds clues and pieces of his life. And so, you know, I think we do a really good job in the first episode back of finding a way of why Will has to go to him. Although maybe deep, deep inside, there is an urge to want to know more. He wants to connect. He wants to know who he is. Who is his family? Where does he come from? He has a real thirst for that and a quench to find out, you know, figure out his identity. And so I think Ulster's going to be a piece of that puzzle that hopefully, you know, those scenes are fun, and he's just this great actor and villain and sort of bad guy, but also holds a lot of pieces to Will's life. And so, you know, that first episode felt a little kind of Silence of the Lambs-esque, where he knows a lot of information, teasing it out little by little. But for Will, I think he's willing to go pretty far to figure out who he is. The question is at what cost? And what does that come with? And what's the psychological impact of everything he's doing? He's unpacking a lot of stuff. And what does that come with?
Right, he might not like who his dad turns out.
He might not like who his dad is. He might not like where he's from. He might not like a lot of the things which already he has a pretty traumatic past. And we see in that first episode how even some of it, the psychology, you know, we're seeing this young Will character, his younger self, appear in this first episode. I like the idea that this is somebody that just continues to bury things, and at some point it starts coming out, and how it does, I think, is really interesting. And so I think that'll continue to happen throughout the season.
I'm sure it changes things for him. See, Amanda knew all this information coming into that moment. But I think what happens in the second season is that relationship just opens up. You know, we're in the middle of shooting an episode now in which Amanda's past comes back to haunt her a bit, and Will learns information about her that he didn't have before, and that I feel like that creates an inner conflict for him on a certain level that impacts their relationship, but also contributes to the bond, you know, continuing to be built. And then she's upended again by something she learns about Will that she hadn't known. So there's all that happens in one episode, along with an amazing case.
Right, and a lot, and will we see more flashbacks like we did?
Oh, definitely, because in the episode in which Amanda's past comes back to haunt her, we go back and we use that flashback device. Yeah.
She has a moment that is very serious with a young man named Luke, and yeah, they actually have a committed relationship for the time being. She's really in it, and I think the struggle for her is, I mean, as you will see it is balancing their prospective careers and still being who she is, wanting to stay loyal to the GBI while having someone that, you know, in a very close relationship, you have to be very intimate and open. And that is not always her, given that she's been a young single mom most of her life. But we get to see her navigate that. She does have romance in her life, stable romance, because we've seen her have romance, but stable romance in her life currently.
So he'll be around for a little while.
Yeah, we
as
shall
long as
see.
she wants him to stay around.
As long as she wants him to stay around. As long as he proves that he can stay around. I think she wants him there, but, you know, can you stay? Will you withstand it? We'll see. She's eyeing it out. It evolves. You know, it's funny because you say they're not exactly the same, and they're not, but they are simultaneously, because they both have this wall up that they don't let people penetrate. And I think throughout the second season, we get to see not only does Faith graduate from being this intern that Will does not trust or know to actually being a solid partner, but also she graduates to being able to chip the wall away for herself to allow a bit, not a lot, of intimacy between her and Will. So they gain this like distant sibling, maybe cousin relationship that you get to see. Like the fire is still there, but it's a lot more them working with each other and building off of each other and understanding each other in a better way.
You know, one of the aspects of this show I love is that every now and then we get to tap into a little bit of Georgia. And I feel that, you know, there's a case now where there's a little just some myth and culture.
They all tap into history and culture in a way that I think is very special and unique, because we get to see things that are real but not touched on when it comes to different aspects of humanity, whether it be like African American culture in the US, or it be like, you know, Georgia, just how it has a rich history of a lot of stuff down there. Those things, or, you know, LGBTQ community, like that like aspect, or, you know, whatever the case may be, we get to see different aspects, and like we dive into that nuance more with every case. So,
and I think in looking at Amanda's history with the police department, see, part of this, you know, something that comes back to haunt her has to do with, you know, her job. And I believe we also get a peek into just the history of women in law enforcement and what, you know, that was like, you know, in the different eras. So, yeah, you know, we're always I think there's always something to learn.
I learn stuff every episode.